What do you do when you wake up? Because I mean, you do so much. Like, you know, you don't work for a company. You know, like I got to go into work, and you know, what do you do when you wake up? What does your perfect day look like?
For me, my life is structured where, and I think everyone that's listening to the show would appreciate it. We all have a wealth to manage, and that's our time. So to me, I have a portfolio of time. So my portfolio of time is split up like an advisor would, like a consultant would, like a PR person would, where I put my time into certain portfolios. I have a coaching portfolio. I have a business portfolio. I have an investment portfolio. So I have several portfolios that I'll put time in. And depending on what time of year or what the flavor of the time is for me or where I'm just passionate at, I'll dial that up or I'll dial that back. So on a day-to-day basis, I just function as a father, as a leader, as an employer, and then as a man of efficient output. So whatever business practice I'm in, depending on what goals and aspirations, whatever objectives I've got, I put my body behind it. So it all depends. So personally right now for the summer months, I'm making sure I'm taking care of myself a little bit more. I found myself getting really, really drawn down by way of energy. Spread across too many projects, doing far too much. So went back to golf. Thought I'd slow down there. Got back into training myself in a bigger, more proficient way. Taking care of myself in ways that were important. And that season will run its course probably by about September, and I'll pick back up. But my mornings start early. And I'm very much a routine person. So without getting to what my day's like, here's what I'll conclude on. Your day has got to be planned out. And it's got to be consistent. And here's the best part. It has to be consistent daily. Your Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays should look pretty much the same. You should get up around the same time, work out consistently, eat consistently, and go to bed at the same time consistently. And so long as you just mind those markers, everything else that you do with your time should be a powerful thing.
Damn, dude, I want to go back to where you're like, 18. Where you at? You just graduated high school. Did you go to college? No, you dropped out of high school.
I dropped out. I had a tough time in school because my mom was. What grade? I would have dropped out in grade 11. Would have been grade 11.
Me too.
Grade 11. So grade 11, I dropped out. And I always thought I'd get back. And like most dropouts, most, not all. So I'll leave that door open too for those who've dropped out and still have an option to going back. But I never went back. Because I had started a summer job at Midland Walwyn, which turned to Merrill Lynch, being a cold call cowboy. I was making 300 cold calls a day every day. And so
at 18?
At 18. So I was in a firm. Right there, right on Bay Street.
So what caused you to do that? Like how did you know, like, hey, that's what I want to do? Did you watch a movie?
I watched a movie. You knew that. And I know we covered it earlier, but man, I watched that movie, Wall Street, and Gordon Gekko, played by Michael Douglas, and Oliver Stone Flake with Charlie Sheen when he was straight and cool. That was an amazing influence on me. And it's amazing how influence comes. So for me, it was a movie. I saw this movie. Greed was good. I ran out. I bought a book on how to buy stocks in the stock market. Being very frank and honest with you, I never read a page. I just went straight to a stock firm as I knew it, and I applied for a job. The only thing they would hire me for, because I wasn't licensed nor educated, was being what they'd call today a telemarketer. So I said, done, I'll take it. So for $6 an hour, and I got paid if I got a lead, and I would get paid if they did a transaction, and that's all I did. I was a numbers guy, just banged out 300 cold calls a day every day. And that stressed my relationship at home, so I got kicked out and went on my own.
Why did it stress your relationship?
I think largely because parents just want you to do what they believe you need to do. And that's,
what do they want you to do?
Well, gosh, they wanted me to stay in school, right? Finish your education, get a high school diploma, then get yourself a job and get out into the workforce. But for me, I just didn't feel like I fit into school at that time. And so I didn't go back, and my father gave me an ultimatum. He goes, you either go back to school and come back home, or you stay out of this house and never come back. I said, well, I'm going to take the high road. I'm never coming back. So left home early, never went back. And I think through all of that, that's what really forged a big part of my entrepreneurial spirit, which is likely why
that's why. Yeah.
I'm into a lot of things.
And maybe that's why I'm the same.
The
same thing happened.
Exact same thing.
But I mean, I got kicked out. I didn't choose automatically to quit school. I got kicked out because I didn't mow the lawn, do what I said I was going to do, just basically being a little punk kid. And so, my dad, being a tough ass like he was, kicked me out. So once I was kicked out, well, shit, I can do what I want. Why am I going to school?
Right.
Like, dude, I done humped them all type thing. In other words, I had nothing to worry about there. I was all good. I could still show up after school and freaking hang out with all my friends.
Yeah.
So I quit like a loser. That was it. But I never went back. And I think I've said in the past to people, I think that is kind of why I am resourceful, because while everybody else stayed in school and had to go on to college and, did that route, I was like thrown into the frickin' fire and had to work and had to pay attention and had to figure it out.
Well said. And listen, I mean, if anyone's making notes while listening to this, especially the Bomb Squad and those who watch you, is they're called crucible moments for a reason, right? So when a human being hits a crucible moment where there's this break in the path, and they can either go left or right, but to avoid disaster, an upset, a breakdown, or just a death-defying moment, that crucible moment shapes you. And it doesn't shape you, the event itself. What shapes you is the person you become to survive it. So whether it's a sudden loss, whether it's a firing, whether it was you got graded an F, or like Michael Jordan getting cut from the varsity team, and right in that moment, he says, "Oh yeah, watch me." And he came back better than ever. And that's a true story, and that's fact, and that's history. The reality is that the crucible moment doesn't define us. What defined us, that we live with, which is the gift, is what that crucible moment turned you into. So when we go through all those, if you ever are stuck in thinking to yourself, God, I've got it bad, I don't have it well, I'm not as lucky as Brad is, or as Rich is, or as these other people that are talking about, think again. I mean, a lot of your adversity moments were gifts. You just got to frame that right.
Well, I like that. So you had the same experience, and then that's what turned you into you watched the movie, then you said, I'm going to go be a stockbroker. And that's what turned you into this well-rounded, almost like creative. You're like you seem like an artist.
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad you said that, because actually I am a gifted artist. I had an art scholarship I never took advantage of. I can draw anything, create anything. I can write books if I had to, I can do one every day. So I'm hyper creative, but you're right. You're spot on, Brad. I'm so impressed that you said that, and grateful. So for me, being trained in the investment banking business, you're built to understand how to build things from scratch. And as a creative person, guess what a creative guy would love to do? Build things from scratch. So I think a big part of the first lift for me was growing up in the financial services business, where I was surrounded by guys who drove Rolls Royces to work, who smoked cigars at 2:00 till 4, who would take me to lunch and have martinis till 3. I mean, I grew up in an era and amongst a culture in the early 90s when that was a very interesting community. So I was cured that way. I was matured into that community. And so
it sounds like a fun community though.
It was, dude, it was. But I remember trying to be in that community. I had no liquor tolerance till I was well into my 20s, and I didn't smoke cigars at all because I didn't dig them yet until now recently. So
do you like them now?
I do love them now. Absolutely. So my point is that for me and for you in this conversation is that doing all those things, the financial services business, the wealth management realm, hanging out with guys who are making millions, serving people who were custodians to billions, that environment really, me marinating in that space created me because of that space. For sure.
And you stayed pretty much on the same path the whole time.
I did. So as I grew up out of that space where many people would write and say, well, how did you get connected to celebrities? And where did this whole thing with icons and legends come from? It's like, well, because what happened was, like most people who want to sell more of their services, guess what you do? You market, you network. And so I found myself sponsoring events for these icons and legends who were starting to go on these book tours. And the most famous that really was a huge tipping point for me was President William Jefferson Clinton, your 42nd president. And so I had the opportunity of being in a room. I'll never forget it, being in a room. He just launched a speaking career. And as you may recall, the way it all went was he had such a large litigative legal bill to pay that with the Monica Lewinsky issue, that he had to go to work. He had to become a speaker. So he had to launch a book. So when I sponsored the first event, the truth be told, is I sponsored a booth, but at the back of the room next to the bathroom. And you know what that's like. I'm not sure if you've been in that position, but the only people you're seeing are people with full bladders or quick reason to exit the building. So that's not where you're going to connect with people with money. So I thought, but everyone's looking at the stage. And if I was on stage, then I would have people looking at me. So how do I do that? I'm not the president. So maybe if I sponsor a way to get up there to open the day, maybe even introduce the president, that might be great. There might even be a bit of a transference of trust. And that's what happened. I hit a tipping point where I got myself up on stage and doing that. Now, you and I know, and we've seen guys right now where there's a lot of celebrity events. You speak at a lot of them, where there's conferences and guys are getting together and big money's being spent on incredible names, none of which we need to talk about right now. But there's a lot of what we call brand blending, right? Celebrity collaboration. Well, I did that 20 years ago when selfies weren't a thing and taking a picture was actually awkward because, well, you didn't have people around with cameras very often. So luckily for me, I journalized a lot of that. And to my benefit, I was able to stay that course. So I stayed the course, being able to co-brand myself as a wealth management influencer in that space by being able to be on the stages that made a lot of sense.
Have you made a lot of people a lot of money?
I've made a lot of people a lot of money. And I think more importantly, I've helped people not lose money, which is probably the more important part.
What do you see going on here in the next 3 years as far as our financial markets?
I think right now, without getting into the macro or social economic conversation, it becomes very, very simple. Just ask yourself this: what could you use a lot more of that if you did, it'd make life easier? And if you ask anybody, anyone in the studio, anyone in your staff, anyone listening in the bomb squad and beyond, the number one thing is just, quite frankly, income. If I can have income that came in more consistently, so as time went on, I didn't have to work as hard. That's the one thing people are going to be pursuing. Because we saw that after the pandemic. You had parents who had kids moving back. You had parents with kids moving back with more kids. They had a strain on their cash flow because as we grow older, we work less, right? Income starts to drop, retirement years become, and of course now assets get drawn down on. So I think the real focus for people in the next realm, the next evolution of the financial era, Brad, is going to be helping people understand their relationship to income. If you can shift your relationship to what it means to produce more income in a safe, conservative, risk mitigative way, then that matters. Is it real estate? Probably. Is it fixed income derivatives? Perhaps. Is it ETFs? Listen, I'm not a financial planner nor an advisor, but I'm a thought provoker. So as an author and as a researcher, I understand that market, and I understand that if you shift people's relationship to income, you've got themselves shifting their relationship to a financial life.
You know, if I were to like listen to your podcast, I feel like I'll hear all kinds of information. Do you have anything based on sales?
Well, ironically, yeah. I mean, probably the number one thing that we've done in the past that really helps sales is I produced a program called Rich Speak, where a lot of people would come to me and said, gosh, how are you so, how did Brad put it, slick or smooth,
polished.
Prepared, polished. I like that.
Yeah, you're very polished.
That's all part of just what you create and generate. So I created a program called Rich Speak, which I took all the years of all the people that trained me in how to speak, present, and converse, one-on-one, one to few, one to many, and I put it into a program. And the reason why I believe that that program is by far the best sales program is because a big function of sales is how one relates to others, whether one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And so in this era, in this age, and you know this better than me and better than most, is social media and those platforms amplifies your ability to speak. And whether it's conversational or whether it's instructional or whether it's instrumental, though that's the skill set that really gets stepped over. And I believe that's the skill set that I train a lot of people on with a lot of professional prowess.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute, because
Sure.
a lot of people listening have businesses. They're already going to, let's say, recognize that you know what the fuck you're talking about. So they have businesses, they want to get rolling. What would you say that their, I would say, skill set deficiency is? Sales?
100% sales. I
Because
think
most people, like if they have a problem with their business, their top line is not raising.
well, and it's math. You know, it's not a matter of philosophy or people or perspective. It's just math. You want more sales, you don't have to sell more people. And so if you increase that output, you're going to increase the input. But the question then becomes, how are you selling? How are you conversing? And some of the problems that I find from people who are entrepreneurs and innovators out there selling their products, programs, or services is they wouldn't buy this stuff themselves. Part one, right? So in other words, the sellers aren't believers. They're not using their own stuff. Number two is they're not a living demonstration of the very thing they want to have people do. And that's another one. They don't have any proof, any social proof, any personal proof in their life that they themselves do that thing. But the third most important part, and this one's the real killer, is they just don't have the passion, the conviction, or the persuasion. That's not an act of moving others artificially, but authentically. Like, man, this cream I put on my skin, man, this skin feels so buttery. I can grab toast and rub it across. You gotta touch this. Like, I'm blown away by what I got. I don't even got no butter here, but you know what I'm saying, right? Sales is not an act. That's a technique. It's an enrollment. It's like something so damn good. I want some of that. And I think people are disconnected from the humanization, the humanity of why it is that I'm selling. You're not really selling, you're sharing. And when you share with passion and conviction, with power and grace and ease, man, your revenues will increase because you're not working for them. It's an expression of them.
What are your goals over the next 3 to 5? Like you have to be one of those planned individuals.
You know what, man? I hate to disappoint. I'm not exactly a planned guy. I'm very fluid. There's a part of me that really feels very organic in approach. Meeting you today may just be one of those crucible moments that may reshape, redefine who you and I both are in the next 2-5 years. I don't know. But if I came with a plan and I came with an agenda, you'd feel it a mile away, especially from a guy like me looking this way.
Yeah, but don't you have one?
Of course I do. But it doesn't lead me. It drives me. So that way, it's almost like I've got an idea of where I'm going to go, and I've mapped out routes A, B, and C, but I'm not going to look at those routes because I want to enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to figure out, like in 3 to 5 years, if I called you back, if you said today what you'd be doing then.
Oh, I'll declare it now. I mean, right now, this firm that we're building, the Legacy Council of the Americas, the assets under management currently are $2.5 billion. We'll be back at $5 billion. When we come back, we'll be at $5 billion in the next 3 years.
If I have listeners that are loaded.
Yes.
Because I'm surprised all the time how many listeners I have that are freaking loaded. I'm like, damn, why are you listening to me, dog? But they listen. If they have some questions and they want to invest, where would they go?
Well, they can contact me directly and we can have a conversation about where they're at, why they're unhappy, or what it is that they're seeking more of.
Okay.
That's one. Two, our approach is very simple. We don't take risks. We're not ones who love what we call the standard deviation ratios. We don't like lots of ups and downs. We love understanding consistent, inescapable income. And so my celebrity clients, whether they're past leaders or whether they're actors or whether they're athletes, I'm the most boring part of their portfolio because they know that they can count on that piece, but I'd rather be that guy. So for my team, for our artificially intelligent platforms, for the advisors that we have on board, I've got a team of 12 that give great advice, another team of 100 that are wholesalers, is that what we call for our team? We're a boutique shop with a boutique approach to a simple conversation.
You have any questions for me?
Well, I'd love to know what it is for you, Brad. What's missing for you when you think about what you've established, what you've created, where you now are as a brand, as a man, as a leader, as someone who you said, and these are your words, trusted and relied upon, followed and revered. Well, what would you see is next for you? What would you love to do if someone can step in and say, you know what, we'll make that happen?
It's a great question. You know, right now I'm evaluating where I am and where I need to be or where I want to be, because I don't need to be anywhere anymore. But where do I want? What do I want? It's hard to define what you want. So I'm trying to figure out, what do I want? Because again, people say, Brad, you should be doing this. You should be doing that. You could make an extra couple million over here per month. I'm like,
well, then what drives you? What's
couple
driving
million
you?
Extra per month though. That's like, I like that idea.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, because I could, that'd raise it up a notch.
Yeah.
But do I really want to go do that? Well, I don't know. And then I start hemming and hawing and like, did I do as good a job here as I could have right here in this company? I don't really think so. Shouldn't I focus on this and get it across the finish line before I worry about this? Or right now I'm in this, I don't know stage and I hate being in it. So I'm reflecting right now.
Do you know, it's funny that Homo sapiens have often been called Homo sapiens for a number of reasons, but a number of behavioral psychologists would suggest that we're more like Homo prospectus, meaning that we're the only species on the planet that actually contemplates the future. The only one. I mean, you don't have bears like just saying, I wonder what I'm going to eat before hibernation. You know, you don't have seagulls wandering around, wondering what they're going to watch on Tuesday. We are the only species that actually contemplates the future. So as you contemplate your future, what would you love to have in place? Because I'll tell you a couple things. I'm going to project now for a second. This show deserves to be a Netflix show, an Apple channel, right? I mean, it deserves to be scaled and institutionalized in such a way that now you not only are able to, in fact, create a larger, wider platform where you're into the countrification model, where you're entering countries. And you know what I mean by countrification? People would say globalization, like let's get it around the world in different languages. But I'm talking about between languages and laws. Countrification is being sensitive to the cultural nuances, where maybe the word bomb is not a good word to be using when we're in our, Middle East markets as an example.
100%.
Right. So you get what I'm saying?
It might get me suppressed now. I don't know.
Might be, but things to look at.
What would you change?
That's a bit premature of a question, but let me get to what I'd like to alter. What would be worth altering is looking at a greater vision that if you were to do this all over again, here's the way I would approach it if I were sitting where you are. If you were to do this all over again, knowing all that you know right up until this moment and rewind the tape and you were able to do it again, right? What would you do different that would leave you far more optimally leveraged, monetized, scaled, and even globally reach? What would you have done different? And I think right there, if you enter that conversation that way, it's not like you're looking for something to do or do different. Like Michael Jordan would often be asked, what does he do in his off time? In the old days, he would look at video of himself playing. And they would ask him, well, what are you looking for when you're watching yourself play? He goes, I'm looking for what's missing in the game. Oh, you're looking for what's wrong with your game. He goes, no. I'm looking for what's missing that if it were present would make a difference. So right now, I think you're at that stage in your life and state of mind where you're not looking to do anything. Like you could probably coast right through to the finish line and you'd be completely fine, cool, and still gray bearded and still full headed. Those lenses might have to thicken, but you'll be okay. So all kidding aside, I think that's the approach, Brad. I think that's the way to look at it. So what would you want to do? What would you have done different if you did this all over again? Knowing what you know.
The podcast?
Yeah.
Probably prepared a little bit more for each guest. Mm-hmm. Filtered what I say a little bit more. Became less real, less me. I would have probably performed a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because like, again, if you go back and look at all the episodes, it's just me talking to someone. You'll see people in the comments, dude, come on, you're interrupting them. But that's because when you say something, I think of something, I want to say something. It's just like a real conversation.
And by the way, for people who are listening, I just interrupted Brad. This has been a real conversation. Like I've been locked in because I do know I'm in a conversation with you. I'm not performing, I'm not acting, and nor are you. I do want to acknowledge you that this has been a real conversation. I'm grateful for that. It's not scripted. You got one piece of paper there.
Well, see, that's what I would change. Maybe.
Fine. So
but how do you know? Like, what if everyone likes dropping bombs because it's not like that?
So that's a secondary conversation, but I want to bring something up because it might be a very cool insight for you. What I'm detecting already, and early in this conversation, and I mean we're on camera, on air, is first of all, nothing that you said just now is about doing something different to be bigger, badder, and or bolder. There's something about you that already occurs to me that you want to get it better. You wish you had been able to do it in such a way that would leave you far more impressed with the work that you'd done. So that's
or just look like I tried.
Well, who do you think doesn't see that you've tried? Interesting. So for those who
because I haven't, like, again, I told someone the other day, I haven't really worked in like 10 years. They're like, what are you talking about, dude? You're here all the time. I know, but I'm half-assing it. People are like, what do you mean you're half-assing it? Like, compared to what I should have been doing and could have been doing, I haven't done anything. Now, to me, that's just the truth. Like, again, I could come across and try to tell everybody, oh, yeah, I'll but I'd be a hypocrite myself. Why don't I have a six-pack right now? Well, because, again, every time I start getting in good shape, I think, I don't need to be in that good a shape. My wife loves me as I am. Like, who really cares? I want to be happy. I don't want to die fucking all 3% body fat and starving. Here, let me go get myself a Five Guys and fries. We'll start again Monday. Right. That's called backslide. So do I backslide? Sure I do. But at the end of the day, I'm also on the other side of the fence where that rationalization that keeps me like that, I believe it a little bit. In other words, I don't want to die with 3% body fat. I want to have tasted a fucking cronut. You ever have one of those?
I have, and I love them.
Dude, I want to have had those. Like, I would be pissed if I were working out and eating right and die. And all of a sudden it's like, you mean I could have fucking had a hamburger yesterday, but I chose a piece of tilapia instead? Why? Well, there has to be moderation. So anyway, I don't think I've met my potential.
So what's your life's mission?
I think I half-assed for the last 10 years at best.
So what's your life mission? What's your life's mission?
I've mishandled deals. I've, made all kinds of mistakes. There's all kinds of things that I could have just done better. Where I believe, go back 10 years and redo them, I would be worth several $billion. And I'm not. And it makes me think to myself, dude, see, but I did that before too. I call it maturing. It's called, get a little bit more mature, and you start to realize, shit. And then you just keep developing until pretty soon you're like an 85-year-old fucking sage.
Well, this is a healthy conversation to have, not just with you, but for anybody. I mean, this is a part of the type of financial life coaching I give, and I train people in giving, but there's really three words, right? And we're talking about all three right now, and you're starting to notice that the way in which they're gauged and then being calculated. One is net worth. And you know net worth, right? You take everything that you own, subtract everything that you owe, and that's net worth, right? It's a financial number. Then you have self-worth. And self-worth has been a big part of what we've been doing over the past, several decades, given that people are really looking to invest in themselves to be better for themselves and others. But the new one, which is where a lot of time and effort is going into, and this might come down to you, is life worth. And life worth, by definition, is the value you give to and get from life. The value you give to and get from life. So for me, it feels like there's still a net worth conversation, a game worth playing for you, and there's a self-worth conversation. That life worth will come. It comes with age and time. Right? I mean, some people call that philanthropy, giving back, charitable work, but it'll come. And even this work is great work. It's making an impact, the time that we spend and the things that we share. But I think there's a game. That's the takeaway, Brad. There's a game worth reinventing for yourself that's worth playing, that has you rediscover the real player that you really are and put you on a field of play that has you find a game worth fucking crushing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're talking business.
See that if you get to wake up every day and say, I don't have to wake up, I get to wake up, and I don't have to do this, but Rich is having me do this, man, this is going to be a great day. And it's only Tuesday. That's cool, because that's really what it's about. Life is a game, and we should play it like a sport. But most people play it recreationally, like for fun, pass the time, get to the next day. It's a fucking sport. Play to win every day. You want to learn how to play it really well? Find other people that are crushing their games. And that's the thing that's enviable about those names that we've cited earlier on. And now also a person that you are in the market. There's a person that you have, there's a persona that you've embodied in the market where people are like, I want to be like Brad Lea. So now it's about raising your own standard, because quite frankly, you've become comfortable in the one that you've grown in.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's completely okay.
I don't hold myself too accountable. In other words, I'm not bummed or depressed, but you just hit it on the head. It's like, I think it's time for something new, something better, something faster.
Absolutely. And I think what I've done well, and I think you're getting a sense of it, but you're nowhere close to being convinced by it. I'm leaving that window open. Is to be able to say, what if we created a whole new game? What if we really were to find a way to institutionalize your IP? That means you, what you know, who you've been, what you've done, take it to the next level. Think about a really wonderful media group, media company, a Netflix panel. Maybe we're able to, even given the work that you've done and for people who are looking at using social media in a powerful way, create a new platform on those streaming platforms to give them the opportunity of having a voice. I mean, there's a way for you to be really, truly the Anthony Bourdain of human betterment. Get out there and immerse yourself in the road and get caught up in the local cuisine and get into a really cool jam session in New Orleans while you're interviewing some icons, legends, and gods of that industry, right? Of that economy, of that culture, and give us a sense of what it's like. Talk to us, Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain, who was like, man, I love this guy. He's pulling me into places I would never go and trying shit I would never put in my mouth, but I like this guy because he's doing it for me. That's the trust people have in you, where you're really their big bro who's willing to do the work to grow and inspire people to do it the same way. I think that's the fun part. That's the part where you can reconnect those two, where you can make billions and drop bombs. I mean, that I think is the key for you.
Dude, make billions and drop bombs. What a life that sounds like.
Now, there's a bumper sticker, right? Make billions and drop bombs.
Yeah.
That could be our new co-venture.
Hey. What's the split? We got to talk turkey. Folks, and by the way, what if the Bomb Squad could do anything for you, what would you like them to do?
Hey, listen, I mean, if the Bomb Squad is comprised of people who are looking for a way to learn where they can get their relationship right with money, wealth and worth. Money, of course, is currency, wealth being the shiny stuff, and worth being the stuff that you and I just recently talked about. If they want to be able to have a great financial life, not a good one, not an okay one, but a great financial life, one that I define as one that's whole, complete, and performing, and they want to put together their own financial life plan, one that is going to be rich with what matters to them, views that they value, and a perspective they can trust, and they can co-author it, I'd love for them to lean on me to help them co-craft that plan for them. Pretty simple. That's the offer.
Folks, And they just go to richarddolan.com.
richarddolan.com.
DOLAN, folks. Well, Richard, I'm glad you came.
A pleasure.
I want you to do a part 2 one of these days.
I love that.
So we'll have to get you back on here for a part 2.
I promise.
Folks, go follow him at Richard. Is that a dot? No.
Yeah, it is a dot.
Richard.Dolan on social media, or go to richarddolan.com. Look him up. Appreciate you coming. And until next time, as always, keep it real. It should be a company. But like, if I could pay some dude or girl, I don't care. Actually, a girl preferably. If I could pay someone to come over to my house with a ladder and the filters and the light bulbs, all the right light bulbs
and filters.
Yeah, once a month. Come over.
Yeah.
Are there any? If you come over and there's no bulbs out and there's nothing to replace, it's $50 for a visit.